I wasn't planning on being charmed by a stranger in a hotel lobby that afternoon. Honestly, I was just killing time before a meeting that could either change my whole career or tank it completely. You know the kind of day where your mind's a mess, and the last thing you want is a distraction? Yeah, that was me. So there I was, sitting on one of those stiff leather chairs in the lobby of this downtown hotel, staring at my phone like it was a lifeline, when I noticed him. At first, I thought he was just some guy passing through, but then I heard the music. He was sitting at the grand piano that takes up half the lobby, fingers casually gliding over the keys. The kind of playing that sounds effortless, but clearly isn't. Not background noise, but something that commands attention without yelling. He was maybe late 20s, dark hair that looked a little tousled, wearing a simple black shirt rolled up at the sleeves. A subtle intensity about him, like he was lost in his own world but still aware of everyone around. The way his eyes closed with the notes made it clear this wasn't just a job or a casual play. This was something he was living. I tried to focus back on my emails, but the music pulled me in. Then, out of nowhere, he shifted into a melody that felt different. Soft, almost hesitant, like someone testing the waters. That's when I noticed him glance my way. Not a look you'd expect from a stranger at a piano, but something almost intimate, like he was sharing a secret just with me. I don't know why, but my heart sped up. It wasn't like I was a total please-me for romantic cliches or anything, but that moment felt charged. Like the room had shrunk around us. The music wrapped around me, and I realized he was playing something he improvised, something just for me. And that's when I knew this was going to be a day I'd never forget. But I had no idea how much it would change everything. I'm sitting there, caught off guard by this guy at the piano, playing something that sounds like it was pulled straight from my own thoughts. I mean, who does that? Who just suddenly switches gears and plays a tune that feels like it's meant for you, and only you? And yet, here he was, eyes flicking over with this small, almost shy smile, as if he was daring me to feel what he was feeling. The lobby had quieted a little around us. People still moved, but the noise dropped like the music was creating a little bubble around the piano. I should have been annoyed. My meeting was an hour away, and I still hadn't gone over the pitch I was supposed to nail. But instead, I found myself leaning forward, letting the sound wash over me. It was weirdly comforting, like the notes were smoothing out the jagged edges of my day. When the last note faded, he opened his eyes and looked right at me again. Then, without breaking the connection, he said, "Hey, I'm Alex." It wasn't a question, just an introduction. I blinked, trying to figure out how to respond without sounding like a total dork. "I'm Ryan. I managed." That was really something. He shrugged like he wasn't fishing for compliments, but there was a spark in his eyes, a little nervous energy that made me realize this wasn't just a casual gig for him. "I don't usually play stuff like that for strangers," he admitted. "Yeah? Well, I'm glad you did. I needed it." I laughed a little, hoping it sounded casual but honest. "Long day. You could say the music saved me." Alex smiled wider this time, stepping away from the piano bench like he was thinking about something. Then he nodded toward the bar on the other side of the lobby. "Coffee? I'm on a break anyway." Normally, I might have hesitated. I'm not the meet random piano guys in hotel lobbies type, but something about the way he looked, like he was genuinely interested, not just being polite, made me say yes. We moved to a pair of tall stools near the bar. The coffee was decent enough, and the lobby had warmed up with more people coming and going. But between sips, we just talked. Turns out, Alex was a local musician, not the kind of performer you see on big stages, but one who played at small venues and hotels, just enough to support himself while chasing bigger dreams. I told him about my job, marketing, but kept it vague enough to avoid sounding like I was bragging or drowning in stress. He seemed genuinely curious, asking questions about the kind of projects I worked on and the music I liked. We found a weird rhythm, like two people who just met but weren't in a hurry to leave each other's company. I told him about the meeting I had coming up, and he nodded like he understood how those moments could be heavy. "You'll kill it," he said, eyes locked on mine. "You've got that. I'm about to surprise everyone." "Look," I laughed. Thanks. That's exactly what I need to hear right now. Then, after a pause, he said, "You know, if you want, I could play something for you again. Maybe bring some good vibes before your big moment." I wanted to say yes before I even realized I was thinking it. So I did. Back at the piano, the lobby seemed to fade again as he started playing. This time, it was lighter, more hopeful. The kind of tune that felt like a fresh start, like the first breath after a long run. I felt my nerves easing in a way I hadn't expected. It wasn't just the music. It was everything about him. The soft way he touched the keys, the small smile tugging at his lips, the way his whole focus was on making me feel better. When he finished, I stayed seated for a moment, not quite ready to break the spell. Then he turned and grinned, that same shy energy sparkling in his eyes. I know it's cheesy, but music's my way of saying, "I'm here," without using a ton of words. He said. I nodded. I get that, and right now, it means a lot. There was a pause, then he leaned in a little, lowering his voice. "Look, I don't usually do this. Play for strangers, then hang out. But you seem like someone worth it." I felt heat rise in my chest. Partly from the compliment, partly because hearing that from a guy like Alex felt like it was happening in slow motion. "I'm glad you did," I said. "I don't think I've felt this calm in weeks." He smiled again, and for a moment, the noise of the lobby, the stress of my day, all of it melted away. I realized I was completely, unexpectedly captivated. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a reminder for the meeting. Reality hit like a cold splash of water. I glanced at Alex, who caught the look and nodded, understanding. "Go get him," he said simply. I stood up, feeling lighter than I had in days. "Thanks for everything," he shrugged, casually cool but with a soft edge. "Maybe I'll see you around, or maybe I'll just play a song or two, waiting for you." I laughed. "I'll hold you to that." Walking out of the hotel, I felt this weird mix of nerves and hope. That chance encounter, Alex's music, his smile, it had done something I didn't expect. And I swear just the thought of hearing him play again made me look forward to what the next few hours might bring. The meeting itself was a blur. I mean, I nailed it. Or at least that's how I remember it, because everything afterward felt so much sharper. Like, while I was there, pitching ideas and answering questions, a part of me was still caught up in the memory of Alex at that piano, the way his fingers danced over the keys like he was telling a story without words. Afterward, I didn't head straight back to my apartment like I'd planned. Instead, I found myself wandering back toward that hotel. Silly maybe, but there was something magnetic about the place now. Like maybe I could catch Alex playing again. Maybe I could hear that music, see that smile. When I got there, the lobby was a little quieter than before. The afternoon rush was dying down. And there he was, at the piano, just like before. But this time the music was softer, more casual, like a conversation instead of a performance. He caught my eye and gave this small, almost relieved smile, like he'd been hoping I'd come back. I slid onto the bench beside him, and we exchanged a look that said a lot without words. I don't know what I expected. Maybe a rehearsed line or some small talk, but all he said was, "Tough day?" As if he already knew the answer. "Yeah," I admitted, "but better now." He nodded and started playing again, this time something slow and tender. I could feel the notes wrapping around us, almost like a shield against everything outside the lobby walls. And while the music played, I caught myself studying him, the way his eyes closed just slightly when a note hit right, the way his mouth twitched into a smile when he hit a chord that felt just right. "Do you come here often?" I joked, and he laughed, this warm, genuine sound. "Every day, pretty much," he said. "It's my stage, my hiding place, and sometimes my therapy." I blinked. "Therapy?" That caught my attention. "Therapy, huh? What's the story there?" He paused, fingers still hovering over the keys, then shrugged. "Life's complicated. Music helps me sort through it. Make sense of the noise." I nodded, knowing exactly what he meant. "Yeah, I get that. Sometimes all the noise feels like it's gonna swallow you whole." There was a beat of silence. Then he finally looked over, eyes sharp and curious. "So what's your noise?" I hesitated. For a moment, it felt like maybe I could tell him everything. The stress at work, the loneliness that had crept in over the past year, the way I sometimes felt like I was just going through the motions, waiting for something real. But then I caught myself, worried about oversharing with a guy I'd just met in a hotel lobby. Just work stuff, I said with a half smile. Nothing as poetic as music therapy, unfortunately. He grinned, like he didn't believe me, but said nothing more. Instead, he slid over just a little, giving me enough space to scoot closer. The air between us felt charged, but not in a pushy way. Like a slow build, the kind of tension that wasn't about rushing, but about savoring the moment. "I'm glad you came back," he said quietly. "Me too," I admitted. I wasn't sure why at first, but now I think I get it. He looked at me then, really looked, and it felt like he was seeing more than just the surface. Maybe we both needed this little break. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Yeah, maybe. We talked more after that, but it wasn't forced or rushed. We shared little things, the kind of details you only toss out when the conversation feels easy. Like how he'd grown up playing piano because his mom was a teacher, or how I'd once tried to learn guitar and gave up after a month. We laughed about bad first dates and awkward moments. It felt like I'd known him longer than just a couple hours. Before I knew it, the sun was dipping lower, casting a warm glow through the lobby windows. The staff started to tidy up, and Alex stretched, like realizing how much time had passed. "Dinner?" he asked casually, like it was no big deal. I hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, I'd like that." We ended up at a little Italian place a few blocks down, the kind of spot with dim lighting and a playlist that made you want to lean into the person across the table. Over pasta and wine, the conversation flowed even easier. I found myself opening up more, telling him about the career risks I was trying to take, the fear that stuff might not work out, but the stubborn hope I couldn't shake. He listened like it mattered, and when he shared his own dreams of writing music that touched people, maybe one day recording an album, I felt this strange mix of admiration and kinship. At some point, the topic drifted to relationships, and I caught a flicker in his eyes when I mentioned I hadn't dated seriously in a while. Maybe longer than a while. I wondered if he felt the same, the kind of loneliness that sneaks in when you least expect it. After dinner, we walked back toward the hotel, the city lights casting a soft glow around us. Neither of us said much, but the silence wasn't empty. It was comfortable, like the kind of quiet that happens when two people don't need words every second. Back in the lobby, Alex stopped by the piano again and played one last song, a slow, sweet melody that felt like a promise of something just beginning. When he finished, he looked at me with that same shy smile. "I know this is sudden, but would you want to do this again? Maybe without the hotel lobby crowd next time?" I grinned. "I'd like that." He hesitated for just a moment, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled business card. "Call or text me anytime. I'm around." I took it, feeling a little thrill in my chest. "I will." As I walked out into the cool night air, I realized something. That random afternoon in a hotel lobby had turned into one of the best days I could remember. And maybe the music wasn't just therapy for Alex. Maybe it was a way of bringing us both back to something real, something we hadn't realized we were missing until that moment. And honestly, I couldn't wait to find out where this was heading. The next few days were a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. I kept the crumpled business card in my wallet like it was some kind of treasure, pulling it out more times than I care to admit, just to remind myself that this whole thing wasn't a dream. But texting Alex was a different story. I kept staring at the phone, thumbs hovering, wondering how to start a conversation that wouldn't sound too eager or awkward. Eventually, curiosity won. I sent a simple message. "Hey, it's Ryan. Thanks again for the music the other day." Almost instantly, my phone buzzed. "Hey Ryan, glad you liked it. Want to grab coffee this weekend?" I grinned like an idiot and typed back, "Definitely." When Saturday rolled around, I realized I was more nervous than I'd been before any work presentation. Not because I didn't know Alex. I'd seen him, talked to him, but because this felt different. This wasn't about business or small talk. It was about something real. We met at a cozy little cafe tucked away from the busy streets. Alex was there already, head down over a steaming cup of coffee, fingers tapping rhythmically on the table. When he looked up and saw me, that same shy smile lit up his face and I felt my chest tighten. We settled into a corner booth and the conversation picked up just where it had left off, but somehow deeper. He talked about the challenges of being a musician, how gigs were unpredictable, how some nights were magical and others felt like scraping the bottom of the barrel. I told him about the pressure at work, the constant juggling act of trying to prove myself but not burn out. At one point, we got quiet for a beat, just listening to the hum of the cafe and the clatter of cups. Then Alex looked at me and said, "You know, playing for you that day, it felt like the first time in a long time that I was really connecting, not just the music, but with someone." I nodded, feeling the same. I felt it too, like something shifted. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing the back of my hand. It was such a small gesture, but it sent this warm rush through me. I didn't pull away. Instead, I intertwined my fingers with his. "Do you want to hear something crazy?" he asked, voice low. "Always," I said. He smiled, then pulled out his phone. "I wrote a song that I've never played for anyone. It's kind of raw, but it's about hoping for a fresh start. Would you want to hear it?" I swallowed hard. "Yeah, I'd love that." That night, we met at his apartment, a small but cozy space filled with music sheets, vinyl records, and a well-used piano pushed against the wall. He sat down and started playing, fingers gentle yet certain. The song was beautiful, honest, vulnerable, and full of hope. I sat there, completely captivated, feeling like I was getting a glimpse into his soul. When the last note faded, I looked at him, and all I could say was, "That was amazing." He laughed softly. "Thanks. I wrote it thinking about this moment, the chance of something new." I reached out and brushed a stray lock of hair from his forehead. "I'm glad you did." In that quiet room, with the city lights twinkling behind the window, it felt like time slowed down. I realized how much I'd been craving this. Someone who saw me, who wanted to connect beyond surface stuff. Over the next few weeks, we fell into a rhythm. Coffee dates, late-night talks, and more music sessions. Sometimes he'd play, sometimes I'd just listen, and sometimes we'd sit in comfortable silence. I found myself opening up in ways I hadn't with anyone in a long time. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, I stopped by his place unannounced. He was sitting at the piano playing softly. When he saw me, his face lit up and he motioned for me to sit next to him. "Rough day?" he asked. "Yeah, but this helps." He smiled and started playing again. This time the music was soothing, a balm for the stress I'd been carrying. As the notes filled the room, I felt my shoulders relax, my mind quiet. When he finished, he turned to me, eyes serious. "I want you to know, whatever this is between us, I'm in." I blinked, heart racing. Me too. It wasn't a grand declaration or a dramatic moment, just two guys figuring out what it meant to care for someone else. But even as things felt right, I couldn't shake the little voice of doubt. Could this really work? Was it too good to be true? Life had a way of messing things up when you least expected it. Still, every time I looked at Alex, every time I heard his music, I wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something real. Something worth risking for, and I was ready to find out. For the next few weeks, things between me and Alex unfolded in this strange, perfect way that felt almost too good to be true. The kind of easy closeness you hear about in movies, but rarely experience in real life. We'd meet up after work, sometimes grab late-night slices of pizza, other times just sit on his couch sharing playlists and talking about everything and nothing. There was one evening, about 3 weeks after that first piano performance, that I remember vividly. It was the kind of night that made you realize you might be falling, even if you weren't ready to admit it. Alex had invited me over to his place for dinner. He was a terrible cook, but passionate about trying new recipes, so the kitchen was a total mess when I arrived. Flour dusted the counters, and there were half-open spice jars everywhere. He was laughing as he tried to flip a pancake that stubbornly stuck to the pan. Maybe I should stick to music, he joked, flashing that crooked grin that somehow made everything better. I grabbed a chair and sat down, watching him move around the kitchen. It struck me just how comfortable I felt here, in this chaotic little world that was so entirely his. Dinner turned out surprisingly good, actually edible, even if a bit haphazard. We ate sitting cross-legged on the floor, the chaos around us forgotten. Afterward, I found myself drawn to the piano again. Alex sat down, fingers hovering over the keys. "Want to hear the latest?" he asked. I nodded, heart already leaning in. He started playing, this new melody that was softer, more tentative than before. As the song unfolded, I felt like he was telling me something, a story about hope mixed with uncertainty, about stepping into something unknown but holding on tight anyway. When the last note lingered in the room, he turned to me, eyes searching. "I wrote that when I was thinking about, well, us." I smiled, feeling warmth spread through me. "It's beautiful." He shrugged, a little shy. "I don't know where this is going, but I want to try. I want to see us figure it out." I reached over and took his hand, squeezing gently. "Me too." That night, as I walked home under the city lights, I realized I'd been holding back, not because I wasn't interested, but because I was scared. Scared of losing myself in something that might not last. Scared of getting hurt again. But with Alex, things felt different. There was this honesty between us, this unspoken understanding that neither of us was perfect, but both of us were willing to try. As days passed, I caught glimpses of that fear in both of us. There were moments when Alex would pull back, eyes clouded with worry, or when I'd hesitate to say what I really felt, afraid it might be too much too soon. One afternoon, we met at a small park near his apartment. The weather was crisp, the kind that makes you want to stay wrapped in a cozy sweater. We found a bench overlooking a pond where ducks floated lazily. "I feel like I'm messing this up sometimes," Alex confessed, breaking the comfortable silence. "Like, maybe I'm not enough, or maybe I'm too much." I looked at him, really looked, and saw the vulnerability there, the kind people usually hide. "You're not messing anything up, and you're definitely not too much." He gave a small laugh, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "I'm scared too," I admitted, scared of what this could mean, scared of losing what we have, but also scared of not having you at all. He reached out and took my hand again, this time holding it tighter. "We don't have to have all the answers now. We just have to keep trying." I nodded, feeling the tension ease between us. From then on, things settled into a rhythm that felt honest and real. We celebrated little victories, like the first time he stayed over without hesitation, or the night we danced in his living room to a playlist that barely matched our awkward moves, but made us laugh until our sides hurt. One night, as we lay side by side on his couch, the city's hum outside the window, I realized something had shifted. The fear was still there, lurking in the corners, but it was quieter now. Replaced by a steady hope that maybe this, us, was worth fighting for. I looked over at Alex, his face soft in the dim light, and felt a surge of affection flood through me. "Hey," I whispered. He turned to me, eyes sleepy but attentive. "Yeah? I'm really glad you played that song for me in the hotel lobby." He smiled, a little sleepy grin. "Me too." And in that moment, with the music of the city around us and the quiet beating of our hearts, I knew that whatever came next, I wasn't going to walk away. Not from Alex, and not from the chance at something real. Because sometimes, all it takes is one unexpected song to change everything. A few days after that quiet night on Alex's couch, life started throwing a curveball I wasn't expecting. I was sitting at my desk, staring at an email that had just arrived from my boss. It was one of those emails that makes your stomach drop. An urgent request to lead a major project with a tight deadline and high stakes. Basically, it was the opportunity I'd been working toward, but the pressure was immediate and intense. I thought about telling Alex, but I hesitated. I didn't want to sound overwhelmed or risk burdening him. Still, when I got home that evening, the first thing I wanted was to see him, to find a calm in the storm. He greeted me with that easy smile, but I could tell he noticed the stress simmering under my surface. I dropped my bag and slumped onto the couch. "It's big. Like, really big, and I'm terrified." Alex sat down beside me, his hand finding mine like it always did. "You'll handle it. You're not alone." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But the truth was, for the first time in a while, I felt the weight of everything crashing in work, life, and the new relationship that was as exciting as it was fragile. Over the next week, I was consumed. Late nights at the office, endless calls, frantic emails. Alex was patient, checking in, sending me messages to remind me to eat or take a breath. But I could feel the distance growing between us, subtle but undeniable. One Friday night, I finally broke. I showed up at his apartment, exhausted and frustrated. He opened the door, surprised, but welcoming as always. "I'm sorry," I blurted out as soon as the door closed. "I've been a mess. I don't want to drag you into this." He pulled me inside and shut the door behind me. "Hey, look at me. You're not dragging me anywhere. We're in this together, remember?" I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, eyes steady and warm. "Talk to me." So I did. I spilled the overwhelm, the self-doubt, the fear that I was failing at everything, even this, and instead of judgment, he listened. Really listened. After I finished, he stood up and moved over to the piano. "Play something," I said, almost without thinking. He sat and hesitated, then started a melody, calm, steady, like a heartbeat. The music filled the room, and I found myself leaning into it, letting it soothe the chaos inside me. When he finished, he looked at me and said, "We don't have to be perfect, just honest." "That's what matters," I smiled, feeling a flicker of hope. "You make it sound simple," he grinned. Simple, maybe not, but worth it? Definitely. That night marked a turning point. I still had the project looming, but with Alex by my side, it felt manageable. We carved out moments where the world fell away. A quiet dinner, a walk under the stars, evenings spent tangled up in conversations and music. One evening, a few weeks later, we found ourselves back in that hotel lobby where it all began. Alex was at the piano again, fingers gliding over the keys like he was telling a story only I could hear. After he finished, he turned to me, eyes shining with something I couldn't quite name. "Ryan, there's something I've been wanting to say." I held my breath, heart hammering. He took a deep breath. Us, it's the most real thing I've felt in a long time. And I want to see where it goes. No matter what. I smiled, feeling the warmth spread through me. I want that too. In that moment, surrounded by the soft glow of the lobby lights and the fading notes of his music, I realized something important. Love isn't about having it all figured out. It's about showing up, being vulnerable, and choosing to keep going, even when it's scary. And with Alex, I was ready to take that chance. Months passed, and while life kept throwing its usual curveballs, Alex and I found a steady rhythm. The project I'd been drowning in wrapped up successfully, though it came with a few sleepless nights and a lot of caffeine. Through it all, Alex was there, sometimes with a text check-in, sometimes with a surprise visit, but always with that quiet, steady presence that reminded me I wasn't navigating any of it alone. One chilly evening, we found ourselves back at his apartment, sitting close on the couch with a record playing softly in the background. The city lights filtered through the window, casting a warm glow across the room. He reached for my hand, fingers gently intertwining with mine, and I felt a sense of calm wash over me that I hadn't felt in a long time. "I never thought a hotel lobby piano would change my life," I said, smiling at him. He laughed, that easy grin curling his lips. "Neither did I. But here we are." We sat in comfortable silence, just being. No pressure, no expectations. Just two people who had found something rare and real in the middle of the chaos. Later, as he played softly on the piano, I realized that the music wasn't just a backdrop to our story. It was a language we both understood. It spoke of hope, of vulnerability, and of the courage to open ourselves up to something new. Looking at Alex, I felt deeply grateful, not just for the music, but for the way he saw me, for the way he held space for my fears and dreams alike. It wasn't about grand gestures or perfect moments. It was about showing up, day after day, choosing to be present and authentic. And that, I realized, was more than enough. As the last notes faded, Alex glanced over, his eyes soft. "Whatever comes next," he said, "I'm glad it's with you." I squeezed his hand, heart full. Me too. In that quiet, ordinary moment, I understood that sometimes love doesn't announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it arrives like a simple song, steady, true, and just for you.